And welcome to another edition of Travel Leaders Tri-Cities on News Talk 870 KFLD. Got the boarding pass ready to go. John McKay, your host, along with Sandra from Travel Leaders. And where are we off to today?
Well, we're going to do a couple of different things, but we're going to continue our journey that I escorted. The last time we did our Sail Away Saturday show, we talked about taking people from the Tri-Cities to the Douro River,
Yes.
Lisbon and the Douro River on Uniworld, which was beyond superb. And then when the trip ended, that's where we're going to pick up today.
Okay.
So the trip ended in Porto, Portugal, which I think I told everybody has now become like one of my new favorite places to go ever, anywhere.
And that's saying a lot because you've been everywhere.
I know, but it is fabulous and fantastic. But everybody in our group, and there were 19 of us who went and 15 who boarded a flight in Porto and flew with me to Barcelona.
Ooh.
So that's what we're going to talk about for most of today. And then at the tail end of the show, I want to tell people what's in the works for next year. But Barcelona became everybody's favorite place because of the feel of the place and the culture and the food and just the whole atmosphere of Barcelona. And if you haven't done it, you should, and you've got lots of opportunity because it's become one of the most popular departure points for Mediterranean cruises. So we'll spend some time talking about that on a Sail Away Saturday. But what I wanted to talk about today was, what are your expectations of visiting in Barcelona? And usually if you're going to cruise, you're there at least 2 nights before or after your ship comes in. But here's a way that you can do it in conjunction with a river trip or a land vacation. We used a company called Avanti that I've talked about on the show before. And we've even had a call in from their very cute Francais rep, Pascal.
I remember,
Yes.
yes.
Well, we used Avanti because they're a great company for doing land trips that are kind of independent and you can make them your own. So we took the program out of their wonderful Europe brochure and we customized it to be what we wanted it to be in Barcelona. I'd been there before, so I had definite opinions about what I wanted to include and not include. And the great thing about booking through Avanti is you get to prepay your package. So your money's protected. If the euro goes up or down or whatever, you're fine. And there's so many options to pick from that you get to put together pretty much anything you want.
Ooh.
They package every European city, many with pre- and post-cruise nights, as I mentioned. 2 nights to lots of nights. You can add on or subtract. Usually it includes the hotel and breakfast and Wi-Fi, which in my opinion is like a critical component these days. Got to have the Wi-Fi. You could include a rental car or a rail ticket, or as in our case, nothing extra, just the package and some tours that we selected. But here's the deal about what we did in Barcelona. We flew into Porto and we hired the company to pick us up at the airport because we weren't going to be there really a long time. We were only going to be there 3 nights, keeping in mind that we'd already been on the road for 10. So this was the tail end of our trip. They picked us up at the airport. Our guide was, I have to spell her name because I can hardly pronounce it, Zaida, Zada. And our driver... And off we went on a tour of Barcelona. So we were killing 2 birds with 1 stone. We were doing an airport meet and greet and a city tour. We had a private bus, and she took us on an overview of Barcelona. So this was a way to do stuff without wasting any time. And it gives you a great idea in a city if you've never been there before, and most of the people with me had not ever been to Barcelona. Gives you an idea of what the city offers, just sort of an overview, so that you can go back and pick up on the stuff that you went, wow, I've got to go back and see that. The other stuff, if it doesn't interest you, you go, okay, been there, done that, and you move on, right?
Well, that's where the Olympics were a number of years ago.
How did you know I was going to say that?
Yes.
So the first thing we did was visit the Olympic site, which was kind of amazing. It's on an overlook over the city of Barcelona. And we saw the main area where they did track and field. We saw the place where they put the torch. We saw the night venue with pillars that light up at night. And the great thing about this is it's still an integral part of life in Barcelona. So they built it for the Olympics, but it's still part of what they do every day.
And that's good because some communities, when they build the Olympic stuff, once they're done with it, it just kind of fades away.
I know. Wouldn't that be a shame after all the money it took to build that thing?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So we did the overlook of Barcelona after we did the Olympic site, and we stood there and you saw all the city behind us, the cruise basin, and by some coincidence, they were launching a ship the day we were standing there.
Oh, my.
So that was interesting. I found that out after the fact. And then from there, we got in the bus and we went down what is the main street of Barcelona. And everybody wants to go down the Ramblas. It's pronounced Ramblas, Ramblas. And it's a long stretch of a street that starts by the harbor, by the Christopher Columbus statue, which obviously was erected to remember Christopher Columbus, right by the water. And it goes all the way through town. And as you walk through the Ramblas, and yes, of course, you're going to be careful about holding on to your bags, because that happens pretty much everywhere. You're walking down the Ramblas, and there's a section for pets. There's a section for gardens. There's a section of mimes standing there in funky costumes, looking like statues. Every piece of the Ramblas had an interesting thing, like souvenirs, and then there were cafes. So that is the heart of the city of Barcelona. And then from there, we drove past. They have an architect in Barcelona who's become like the famous thing in the world. His name is Gaudi, Gaudi. He really, he was either a genius or kind of cuckoo. He did the most amazing things, and you will want to immerse yourself in Gaudi when you go to Barcelona. So the first thing we did was go past some apartment buildings that he had designed on the Paseo de Garcia. There are 2 apartment buildings he did. And the last time we were in Barcelona just a couple of years ago, I talked about his apartment buildings and how crazy they are. Not one straight wall in the interior of these buildings, and the outside covered in mosaics, colorful, just incredible. So we did a drive-by of the apartments so that people could see them and know where they were so that they could go back and visit them on their free time. And then from there, we went to the most famous thing he's ever done, the Sagrada Familia Basilica. That is absolutely world famous. And if I have to describe it, it looks from the exterior sort of like a sand castle, like you get wet sand and you just kind of drip it down. And as you get closer to it and you walk around it, it's phenomenal. The thing's been in the works for almost 100 years.
Wow.
Other architects and other construction people have worked on this building, but it is primarily Gaudi. And when we approached, this was by sheer accident, and our guide was like beside herself. It ended up being a festival of the neighborhood of the people that live near the Sagrada Familia. And so while we're there, we're seeing these dance groups. They're like clubs. Everybody wears matching shirts. And they go from old people down to 5-year-olds. Oh. And they build pyramids of people.
Yeah, I've seen that.
One on top of the next. Till you get to the very top. And every top has a 5-year-old child with a napkin. And they start singing and dancing. And they're taking their napkin and they're flipping it through the air. And we just happened to be there on that day. It was so phenomenal.
My. And we're talking like 20 and 30-foot tall pyramids.
Yes, we're talking about, I'd say maybe 10 people. Crazy. And they dance and they party. And this was right in front of the basilica. So that was such a treat. Loved it. So the basilica was designed, as I said, almost 100 years ago. And as you walk around it, the scenes change. That's the amazing part of this. So you start in the romantic part of the Sagra Familia, the views from the Bible, all spelled out. And as you walk around, that's the pleasure part of the basilica. As you walk around to the other side, it's all jagged edges and very modern looking, and that's the painful part of the basilica. Truly incredible. We didn't go inside this time. I'd seen it before, but almost everybody in our group went back. They had to go back to go see this up close and personal. The funny thing was, somebody said to me in our group that Ziada had done such a great job as a guide that when they rented the audio equipment and they used it on the interior to walk around and listen to the commentary, that they really didn't learn very much because she told them everything.
Oh, wow. Now that's doing your job.
Isn't that great? She was so great. I wrote a thank you note to the company for her. You know, when you get a guide that's so incredible like that, it makes everything come alive for you. So that day, she dropped us at our hotel, the H10 Casanova. H10 is a chain, and I love the hotel. It's got a very contemporary feeling. It was in a great location. It's walking distance to everything in Barcelona. And our favorite part was that they had a rooftop bar and a little dip pool. And we hung out on the rooftop in the evening, brought little snacks upstairs. Everybody had to go to the market or whatever. We'd have a glass of wine and we'd look out over the rooftops of Barcelona, and it was magical.
Wow.
It gives me chills just to sit here and think about it. That's what travel does to me. It gives me chills. And everybody always says, well, aren't you tired of it? Don't you want to go do something else? Absolutely not. How could you miss this? This was so amazing. Okay, so the next day, we had booked one of our special tours, and it was to go to the monastery of Montserrat. Have you ever heard of it?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Everybody's heard of it, but nobody knows anything about it. So I'm going to tell you about Montserrat. It was a monastery that was built into, and when I say craggy mountains, I mean craggy mountains, like giant boulders that look like teeth sticking up in the air. And into the side of this mountain, they built this monastery. It's about 30 minutes outside of the city of Barcelona. But once you get there, it's so mystical. It's so otherworldly. And even though I'm not of that faith, I still found this to be so impressive. And we were so happy that we took the time to go do this because we were challenged for time in Barcelona, but we took the time to go to Montserrat. And if anybody's going to go to Barcelona, I would really encourage you to book a tour to Montserrat. Yes, there's a train that goes there. So if you don't want to do a tour, you can get on a train in Barcelona and go out to Montserrat. But I would say it's so much better if you go with a guide. Just as I was explaining, it really kind of makes the history come alive for you. So we're back in the line, and we are just about to go see the most famous part of Montserrat. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you more about it.
Right here on News Talk 870.